Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining Painting with Picasso's Grapevine. My name is Leanna Hahn, and I will be your host and teacher for today. Today we're going to be looking at something super easy. So I know a lot of folks at home may be watching and saying, yeah, I don't know if I can do that. So we're going to give you one where you can look at it and go, you know what, I can do that. This will be a technique in just playing with colors, working with our back and forth strokes, getting a lot more blending, just creating a kind of a fun environment, simplistic, but very lighthearted, very nice, very pretty. So we just got a nice combination of colors going on here, and we're going to work with our number 12 brush and our number 6 filbert brush, and we're going to get some movement going on this canvas. So super easy, anybody can try this. We're going to be using our acrylic paints as always, and the colors are, we have turquoise, we have black, we have some nice lime green, we have cad yellow, and we have white. And as always, we start out with a cup of water and a dab rag. And today with us, we're going to have just a paper towel, simple, and we'll be using that for some of the little flower tops right here, just to dab it off and make them a little bit more light and fuzzy. So, to get started, we're going to work with a blank 16 by 20 canvas. And we're going to start with our number 12 filbert. This is a really good one for go ahead and doing those big broad strokes, those nice strokes on the back. Go ahead and dab it into your water and dab it off on our dab rag. We're going to start with this particular background. It's going to be a combination really of 3 colors. We're going to be using the turquoise, the green, the yellow, and actually may throw in a little bit white, just depending on how dark we go and your personal preference. So to get going, let's start with some turquoise and green and get a nice mixture on that. We're just going to be working on the bottom, little movement back and forth. And this is exactly going to be that, just a lot of movement, really easy, just back and forth. We're going to choose to do this back and forth movement predominantly because this is a landscape, if you will. It's really flowers, but it's kind of a vision of or a view of the landscape of the flowers. And I find that very simplistically, it's a lot easier and it looks very pleasing to the eye to have the background be very even, straight across, kind of mimicking the wind. If wind were blowing through the sky, it generally is moving back and forth. Now you're going to find sometimes these colors are very translucent. So when you run into that, grab a little bit of that white and just mess it in there. Yellow is also very helpful. You can go ahead and mix that right on your palette and add it onto your canvas. And if you get anything on there, just go ahead and streak it off. Never want any bumps or bruises into your canvas. Now you'll notice I'm going to be going right and left. I may start in the middle. I may stop in the middle. But before I move on to the next section and where I get to a point and I say, I like that color, I blend right off the canvas. So for example, on the left here, so I'm kind of starting, I'm getting some coverage. I'm throwing some paint onto the canvas. And you see those streaks in there. I'm kind of stopping in the middle, starting. Once you get comfortable with the color combination and you feel good with it, don't forget to take your paintbrush all the way off. And what that will do is that will erase any of your starts and stops. So you see some starts and stops in there. I have a lot of people that say, oh, I don't like that. It just doesn't look, looks messy. The nice thing about acrylics is that it dries fast, very quick. You can get through a painting very fast. However, it dries fast. So if you're going to make any corrections in the blending process, it needs to be right away. So push hard, get coverage, get a nice feel for it, then make that correction. Kind of back and forth. And what I'm looking for is kind of a little bit of a differential. I like the dimension of having some streaks in there. And how you achieve that is knowing when to stop. Some people will continue to blend and blend and blend, and it looks beautiful. If you're looking for one very solid color, that's awesome. I personally like the streaks showing through. I think it gives it a little bit of character, a little bit of interest. And to achieve that, you just need to stop. So put some paint, put wet paint on wet paint, couple of streaks, and then stop. And then you'll have that nice differential. We're going to continue on up. And in general, acrylic paints, they'll dry in about 6 to 7 minutes. If you're finding that it's very wet and you want to go ahead and let it dry before you continue on, simply taking it to a hair dryer is a great way. You can also just use a good old-fashioned paper plate, wave at it a few times, and that'll bring the magic to your canvas. Now, of course, I am painting from the side here, but you, as an artist in your home, don't forget to kind of step back, make sure you're happy with the way it's looking. You're going to be right on top of your canvas, and your eyes will only be able to see so much. So you need to step back, allow your eyes to adjust, make sure your proportions are correct, and then continue on. And do that frequently, very important. So often you get focused in on something and forget to step back and then realize your proportions are completely off. And then you got to start all over again. Now I'm going to go ahead and start adding a little bit more white to my paints here as I'm gradually going up the canvas. Kind of choosing to show that the bottom portion of the canvas is kind of closer to the bottom, kind of obvious, but where perhaps these flowers might be growing from. So as I progress up the canvas, I'm going to add a little bit more white, just kind of lighten it up. To kind of say, yeah, you know, that's where the light would be, that's where the sky would be. You're growing up from the ground. Again, I'm just jumping back and forth between all my colors. There's really no rhyme or reason as far as combinations, other than what I just described, is taking the white and adding more on the top. If you feel you want to get a more solid feel, then go ahead and mix your combination in advance, then use that to apply to the canvas. I enjoy doing both. You just kind of learn how to blend and kind of continue on. Probably adding the most amount of white right here at the top. Now, if you're finding that your paint is starting to dry at any point during the process, go ahead, add some water, but add the water directly here right to your paper plate because it will make it a little bit more fluid and you can continue across the canvas and not get the dimpling. Go ahead, add some more white. Really let it go light up here. Now, if you are going to plan on painting this and then hanging it on your wall, don't forget to do the sides. It'll give you at least the option of putting it on your wall and not having to have a frame around it. And at the very end, when I'm feeling like I've got some good coverage, go ahead, lean back, make those nice broad side strokes, cover up any of the dimpling that you may see coming through. Nice. All right, so you've got a nice practice here. This is super easy. Great colors, beautiful combinations, very light, very achievable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the next step here. Let's go ahead and wash off our brush. Just vigorously kind of swish it around. This is acrylic paints and they're very easy to clean off. Then what we're going to do is we're going to move into our medium-sized filbert brush. And we're going to decide where are those little flowers going to be? How many flowers am I going to have? So I'm going to do that by just putting out some very quick, wispy little stems. Very easy. Kind of decide how many you want, where they're going to go. This is a very free-form painting. It's not intended to be very linear. So if you want some higher, put them up higher. If you want some lower, drop them in there. And now while your paint is nice and wet, let's go ahead and wash off that black And we're going to move into the white and just create some highlights on top of it. Right on top of those little stems. And again, if your strokes don't match the strokes underneath, that's okay. This is very impressionistic. It's not meant to be so exact. A nice loose. This is something that you can achieve at home. Super easy. There you go. Very nice. Now our next step is we're going to work on those little flowers there. Kind of dandelions after everything is kind of the yellow has kind of gone away. Now we're left with just the seeds. So we want to show how to create those and kind of create a very light summery painting. So we're going to decide where our little flowers going to go. I'm just going to start out with very, very light padding. You'll notice I'm using the side of my brush exclusively and just laying that around. You're going to be mixing into the color underneath it because it's wet right now. If you don't want to, if you want to let that painting dry, that's cool. Go right ahead and do that. I'm good with it because this particular type of flower is see-through. We all remember playing with those dandelions where you blow on them and all the seeds kind of flow away. And we know that when you sit down, you lay in the grass, you can see right through them. Do very, very light, kind of dabbing, just very, very light. We'll get a first layer on. If you want them to be darker, put some more paint on it. That's cool. And they don't have to be exact, because remember, part of the seeds have already blown away, perhaps. If you don't like the shape of it, that's cool. Make some bumpy. Don't make them exactly round. Because we know in nature, nothing is exact. It's very ambiguous. It's very uneven. And you can kind of just decide how many you're going to put out there. I'm just going to throw out a couple more just as an example. And then again, here's the point in your painting where you're going to take a step back. You're going to take a look at it and go, is that good? Do I want more? Do I want to have larger ones? Do I want them to be a little bit more uneven? I'm going to go through, add just a little bit more on the bottom. I'm kind of creating the bottom of each of these flowers a little bit more solid, putting more white there, and letting the top be a little bit more translucent. I'm assuming when the wind blows that it usually picks up the ones at the top first. And it's usually just a couple at the bottom that are left. So we'll go ahead and put that out there. Now with the same brush at the very tip, you've still got your white on there, we're going to just kind of create some very light, and I'm jumping back and forth. I'm changing the direction of my paintbrush as I kind of go along. This is kind of where the wind is just kind of taking off. So make it very obscure, not really solid. Don't make it a complete dotted line. Let it just kind of continue off. Now the last item that we're going to do before we call this done is with our paper towel. If you feel like you have got too much paint on these little flowers, go ahead and just dab them. And if you feel like you want to go ahead and make them a little larger, this is your opportunity to do that. So when you're dabbing it, you're actually picking up some of the paint from the white and kind of spreading it. And this will help those who have maybe perhaps put too much paint on it to get that nice translucent feel and kind of an uneven feel around the edge. Sometimes we still need a little practice on the brush to kind of create an uneven feel. And this is a great technique to go ahead and create a more realistic looking kind of flower. We're just going to let it flow off. Very nice. And then most important, don't forget to sign your painting. You've done a wonderful job. Hopefully we've taken the scary out of painting and we've given you a nice, easy one to start at home. And you've enjoyed this afternoon with us. If you have any questions or would like to learn more about how to paint a beautiful painting like this, send an email to info@picassosgrapevine.com. Thank you for joining us.